Time now for Inside Utah Politics with Lindsay Ertz.
Well, welcome in today. Thank you for finding us. News for Utah Plus is where we are streaming. If you haven't downloaded that on your smart TV, do it now. Apple TV, Amazon Fire, Roku, newer Samsung devices. Those are all the places you can find News for Utah Plus. Just search for it in that little search bar, or on YouTube. We're there as well. Joining me today to break down the latest political headlines, Adam Gardiner, Sarah Reale. Hi, guys.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Happy snow day.
Yeah, it's a blizzard.
Oh my gosh, we got
Finally,
some snow.
everyone's forgotten what it's like.
Nobody knows how to drive.
We don't
in
even
the
need
snow.
to save the Great Salt Lake anymore.
No.
It's done.
We're fixed, and our prayers worked, right? Okay, we have lots to dive into today. A couple of bills at the Utah legislature, and then a big redistricting case in front of federal court today, so we'll dive into all of those. Let's start with the gas tax bill. This is a long-awaited proposal on Utah's Capitol Hill that has finally been unveiled. Adam, I got to start with you because you got to disclose one of your clients who you're working for, but I want your take on this gas tax bill because you have a front row seat to what's been happening.
Sure. This gas tax bill has been going on for quite a while. I think July was the first time that it was discussed. And so I represent an upstream oil extractor from the Uinta Basin. And so it was actually a front row seat. It was really good to actually get to know the industry a little bit more and why gas prices fluctuate. And if you remember, John Huntsman, when he became governor in 2005, this was like his number one issue he wanted to tackle. Like, I want to find out why gas prices are the way they are in Utah. We are lower in price than Idaho and Nevada, but not as low as Wyoming and Colorado. Why is that? And so there's all these like nuanced answers. And I think that Representative Cal Roberts, who is running this bill, he spent a ton of time getting to know the industry, getting to know upstream oil producers, getting to know retail folks, your Holiday gas stations, Sinclair, et cetera, and actually getting to know where taxes are assessed, the oil refinery business. California is has shut down multiple refineries. But California hates coal and they hate gas refineries. They hate cheap energy. And so
That's good for the environment.
And that's fine. They can pay a lot of money for it and have rolling blackouts. So anyway, so there are reasons why Utah refined gasoline and oil is going to California, being sold at a higher price. Transportation costs from the basin are really expensive. It's way different than in Texas because they have pipelines everywhere. So there's all these different nuances. But he worked for so long to get to a place where they could actually lower the gas tax, give a gas tax holiday to residents of Utah, and make it so every other surrounding state is okay with that. That was important because Idaho was upset at the possibility that exports on crude oil going into Idaho would be taxed. So essentially people would be taxed twice. That was removed. That wasn't in the bill that was filed. So this was their way of compromising and making sure that they can lower the gas tax and not produce any harm to anyone wanting to actually produce cheap energy.
Which is notable because for months we've heard House Speaker Mike Schultz and some of the Republican leadership say we're going to shift this tax burden from paying at the pump, right, to the refineries to pay an upstream or an export tax, right? So we tax it when it goes out of Utah instead of when it comes in. Sarah, before we get to you, I want Laura to play this clip for us of Speaker Mike Schultz and Cal Roberts this week, where I asked them a lot of questions about why that controversial proposal got stripped out. House Speaker Mike Schultz argues that Utahns need the reduction at the gas pump and that the bill will bolster the state's long-term supply.
Is there, some pressure put on the oil companies and the petroleum industry to increase supply? Absolutely.
This bill that he's pushing is being run by Representative Cal Roberts. It would lower Utah's gas tax by about 6 cents per gallon starting in July.
If we can allow those refineries to produce at 100% capacity, provide some storage capability that then you could release during the summer, you can smooth down those ups and downs between the winter and the summer.
The controversial part of the bill that would have taxed refineries and exports of Utah's gas triggered a big fight with Idaho, who even threatened to withhold water from the Great Salt Lake, arguing that their residents would have to pay more for that gas coming from Utah.
Well, we're not trying to annex Preston. We were looking for win-win solutions. And I view this as a win-win-win-win solution.
So somebody asked the House Speaker how relations were with Idaho, and he's like, well, we're not mobilizing our army at Bear Lake, and we're not going to annex Preston, so we're doing okay.
The border is not closed.
How will the Utah State students buy a High Point beer?
Right? All good questions. But Sarah, is this a win-win-win for Utah? Because what's happening now is basically the state is going to cough up the money to lower our gas tax, which is just a gas tax cut, and then the money goes back in the pockets of Utahns, presumably. Do you like that plan?
Yeah, there's a lot of different details that, I'm no expert like Adam is, but I kind of look at it from I'm a consumer, and their message to me is we're going to save you money. And it doesn't seem like it. It seems like it's going to actually cost the state more money in a year that we're trying to find more money to save. And at the same time, I'm also like, why don't you cut the food tax? Why don't you make healthcare more affordable? Why don't you make, housing more affordable? There's a lot of things that the Utah State Legislature could do to make my life easier and to put more money in my pocket. And for me, the gas tax and lowering the income tax is just not going to be the two for me.
Adam, $10 to $12 million is what, $12 million, I think, is what this bill is going to cost. And when I say cost, I just mean like the state has to fund it, right, in order to cut it's $12 million less in revenue that we're going to collect, right? But the argument from the House Speaker there was about this long-term play of increasing supply. How do your industries feel about having to kick out more production when, what are they getting in return?
I don't think there's anyone that is upset about the idea of increasing supply. I think that's a really good thing. And I think the legislature the last 2 years has made a lot of really good strides in incentivizing more supply into the market. So to their point, if refineries can kick up production during the winter to 100% of their capacity and be able to kick out more supply makes things cheaper. That's just a reality. And it's for every state around us too. So that is a good thing. And I'm really happy that the legislature went in that direction. I think it's a good one. So yes, that is going to help. And to their point where they say more supply will actually save you money because you're not going to see in July and August. What they're trying to do is prevent these giant peaks and valleys. And so if it can be pretty steady and predictable, that's good for families and that can keep money in your pocket. But again, that when you lower the gas tax, a lot of that, 70% goes to the state to fix state roads. 30% of that money from the gas tax goes to your city to fix city roads. So cities need that money. The state needs that money. So it's got to come from somewhere. One thing that Speaker Schultz has promised to do since the beginning of these discussions is to hold cities and counties harmless. And according to this bill, he's done that. So they're not going to lose out on being able to fix potholes in their city. That is a good thing. So when he says it's a win-win-win-win, that's right.
Yeah. So
I think there were two to one.
win-win-win-win-win is there's
Always
a lot
winning.
of winning happening at the Utah legislature. The transportation budget is the concern, right?
Right. And
Because-
every year we hear like we need more money to expand I-15. We need more money for our roads. And what do people, average voters, care about? Potholes and their roads, right? And so for me, it's like, why are we deciding to take away from this road, the money that we need to fix these roads? At the same time, we're also being told that we need more money to fix the roads. So it makes no sense to me.
Adam, do you think the supply outweighs the cost that we need for those roads, or will the cost take care of itself?
So I think they're two separate discussions. And the reason I say that is because years ago, maybe 10, 12 years ago, we had just a flat rate. I think it was 42.5 cents. I could be making that number completely up, but I think that's
Fake news.
I think that's what the number was. Then we made a decision as a state to tie that number to the price of gasoline and to inflation and other things, the price at the rack, where that tax gets assessed. And so that number has become steadily lower. And so the number was supposed to decrease anyway by 5 or 6 cents over this next year. So Representative Roberts said in the committee hearing, he's like, this was going to happen anyway. Let's just do that early. And Senator Buss from the west side of Salt Lake County in Tooele actually has a bill to make a floor where the gas tax can't go below, which is a good thing. And so I don't think that it was anticipated 12 years ago when gas was 4 something a gallon that we'd get down this low again. Like gas is fairly cheap right now. And so that wasn't anticipated. So we've set a floor and we're just riding out the storm that was going to come anyway. Let's do it early, give everyone a break in their wallets. And then I assume that number might come back up.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it all shakes out. There's been a lot of consternation over this bill for it to finally come out and kind of be like, wah, wah, like we're not really doing anything with it. So we will see where it goes. All right. Also happening today, redistricting in federal court. I sat through these court hearings this morning. So this is a federal case brought by 11 elected officials, including 2 members of Congress in Utah, that are basically alleging that what Judge Diana Gibson did with the redistricting ruling in picking one of the plaintiffs' map is a violation of the federal elections clause, which says that the time, place, and manner of elections is chosen by the states. Well, here in Utah, the legislature, per the Constitution, is the one who draws the lines. So it's kind of the very, very simplified and very high level arguments. But the court hearing today really centered on 3 things. And I kind of want you guys to weigh in on your thoughts on these 3 things. First of all, it was jurisdiction. Like, do these elected officials have standing? Second of all, is this happening too close to an election? There's this Purcell doctrine that, federal courts aren't supposed to intervene too close because it just messes up elections, right? You just don't know what maps you're on, all of that. That kind of debate. And then just the merits of, can a state judge pick a redistricting map in Utah, or is it the legislature who has this sole authority? You can take any one of those 3 questions and weigh in on them, guys.
Sarah, up to you.
Well, I mean, I guess this is a mess. We have created a mess here. It is a gigantic mess. I can't imagine most people can follow along on all of this that's been happening.
I can't even follow along, and I'm following along.
Right. Right. And that's troubling for voters that it's become such a mess. And I keep going back to why the Republican Party seems so scared to lose an election, or so scared to run, that they're going to great lengths to make sure that their power is protected. And that always bothers me. And this entire snowballing mess that we've created, it just gets more and more frustrating. But I do think that there is a lot to say about the piece that I think is the one piece that I think we need to solve is, does a judge have that jurisdiction to be able to decide on the map? And I think that is the one question we need to answer. You add in, gathering of signatures to repeal Prop 4 and all the other messes, and the fact that we really are super close. People are raising money to run for this new congressional seat that might not even exist. So we've created a big, giant turd of a mess here in the state of Utah with redistricting. And the one question I care most about being answered is about the judge picking the map.
Adam, thoughts?
For that reason, I'm really glad that they took it out of the state court. I'm really happy that they filed this in federal court. I think that's a good thing. But I just want to kind of give an anecdote here. I was knocking doors on President's Day. I made my sons come with me to find the civic process.
You were brainwashing them.
They hate it. And I was literally getting signatures for a friend of mine who's running for office. And I said, I would go to the door. Hey, he needs 1,000 signatures to get his name on the ballot. You're eligible to sign. I would love to have you sign. Every single door I went to held up their phone with the text message and said, I've been getting these text messages on this Proposition 4 thing. What is this? Why am I signing it? Am I not supposed to sign it? Am I sending a letter to do something? Is this you? What are you doing? And I'm like, this is not me. This is a totally separate thing. People do not understand it. And to Sarah's point, that is a real problem when the electorate doesn't understand what's going on, because I don't like the fact that a judge can say, I am deciding what map anyone can use. So do I think that these plaintiffs have standing? Yes, I do. I do think that the elected officials that are running in these districts, and I would say that for the Democrat side too. Yeah, you have standing, and you want to know where you're going to be running. And the elected officials in the state that are supposed to be drawing these maps, yes, they have standing, and it's really important that the federal government actually decide on something before the election takes place, before filing in March. Because filing is coming up in March, your argument the argument they're trying to solve is totally valid. It is important that we find out where everyone's going to be running. We're very, very close to filing. Everyone has to know what district they're going to be in. And that has to be resolved now. but I would blame Judge Gibson for this. She had, I think, 10 months to a year to rule on this, and she chose not to do it earlier and said, you, legislature, have 30 days to draw a map. When they did, she said, I don't like your map. I'm picking my own. I'm picking a third-party map. She got it really close to the wire. That's something that, just as a voter, I don't appreciate. And so we're left with not a lot of time left in the process.
Yeah, and I guess I agree with you about some of that, but
No,
parts
cut
of
it. That's cheap.
some of it I don't, because I think that like this mess wasn't started with Judge Gibson. It was started when the legislature decided to look at Proposition 4 and decide that they wanted to go their own direction. So that's the core of it. And part of it too is that like we are to the point where people are fighting this so badly, which makes me be like, why are you so afraid of a competitive district? Why are you so afraid of losing your power, that we are now having all of these signature gathering that actually has caused more chaos? I feel terrible for anyone trying to run for office in any party that's trying to gather signatures right now, because we've created this narrative that it's like they're trying to trick you. This is this, and these are the bad guys, or they're the bad guys. What a mess we've made. And it was all because it could have all been avoided if we would have just followed Proposition 4.
You also mentioned competitive districts, and I think that the legislature created a map. We're calling it Map C. I don't know if anyone remembers that because it feels like 2,000 years ago, but it was December. Map C created one very competitive district and one a very Republican leaning, but still would give a Democrat a chance. So they felt good, like we were creating some competitive districts. Competitive districts are gone in this new map from MWEG and the League of Women Voters. That map is gone. You created a super left leaning District 1, and then the other three are super right leaning. So even if a district isn't competitive, you've now created my nightmare scenario where you have super far left people and super far right people, and the middle is quickly disappearing.
Yes,
It scares me.
totally. And I hear you, but I still go back to, if we would just followed Proposition 4, we wouldn't be in this mess, and Map C wouldn't have even need to be made. We would just follow the independent redistricting committee. So it still goes back to why they didn't just follow Prop 4, even regardless. And I do want competitive maps.
They're more
and that's
fun.
what we have. I know, they are
More
way
fun.
more fun.
More
But what would we
nerds
talk
having fun.
about if we didn't have this drama?
Purple is the coolest.
So, Adam, one of the things that we talked about in court today, when I say we, I mean everyone else talked about in court today.
You just shouted out questions during.
Yes, I was just like, well, what about this? When they did this? No. The judges really pushed kind of both sides on this sort of revolving door that would happen, where the legislature was the elected plaintiffs here, kind of on the same, plane as the legislature, is arguing that instead of picking a map, a remedial map, the judge should have kicked it back to the legislature to, draw, if it's there, right within the state constitution to do that. And the judges kind of pushed on, well, when does that stop? What if the legislature is just unwilling to pass a map that follows Prop 4 and the law that the lower court deemed needs to be put in place? How does that process stop? So you can answer that question or you can talk around it, but it was sort of this like ping-ponging effect of like the legislature could forever violate Prop 4 if that's the remedy. And then the plaintiffs were making the argument, the interveners here were making the argument that it is not only the judge's, within her judicial, appropriate bounds here to issue a ruling, but that she's obligated to because we need a map to sit on.
This is why voters should care about removing the supermajority in the legislature, because it will continue.
Oh, I
like
thought you were
that
going to say
forever.
removing bad judges.
No, removing the supermajority. We will play this game forever until we have a more balanced legislature. They will use their power as much as they can.
I agree. Look at California. They've completely changed the way that they draw boundaries. Their stated goal is to get rid of Republicans in California.
And I hate that too.
Fully Democrat. Texas doing the same thing. Illinois doing the same thing. It's a real problem. But back to your question, the judge had ample opportunity to decide earlier to receive Map C or whatever map they decided to choose and say, here are the problems with this process, go back to the drawing board and then come back. At no point is a judge able to choose a third-party map. So it is not her prerogative to choose a map that no one Drew, that didn't follow Prop 4, that in my opinion does not give competitive districts and is a real problem.
The lawyers in court also pointed out today, though, that the legislature stipulated to that. Like when this was going through the court process after November's ruling, it was always the plan. Like we laid out the plan with the judges and all the parties signed off on it. It was, if the legislature, when I first issued the ruling, you go back and redraw the maps. If you come back and that map violates Prop 4, then I pick a new map submitted by the plaintiffs. Because remember, at first she said, anyone can submit a map and I'll pick one. And then she said, just kidding, just the plaintiffs can submit a map and I'll pick one. And the legislature was like, well, the point being is that the legislature signed off on that. So
that's fair.
How do you, I mean, why didn't they object to it at that point?
Like it.
Well, why didn't they object to it at that point? I mean,
no, that's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
All right. Well, we could beat this dead horse all day, and we'll talk about it some more, I'm sure, in the coming days, because probably by Friday we're going to have a state Supreme Court ruling, because there's a parallel state Supreme Court appeal happening as well. Let's move on finally to the Utah Fits All debate that's happening. If you don't know what that is, I'll have Sarah fill you in. This is the school choice program that we implemented at the state legislature, which basically says, here's a chunk of income tax dollars, and if you apply and your kid meets all this criteria, you can take some of this state money and put it towards any type of schooling you want, including private schooling. A lot of people taking issue with that. Critics call it a voucher program, all that history. But Sarah, explain what's happening at the legislature now with this accreditation piece and the changes of private school definition and what they want to do.
Yeah, so it is a voucher program. That's what they're called. It's giving dollars to folks to either homeschool their children or micro school or send them to private school. And you get taxpayer dollars given to you to educate your child. We already have more school choice in the state of Utah than most states. Parents have more choice about where they send their kid and how their kids are educated than most states. And so this is a way to incentivize folks to basically homeschool their kids or send them to another place. The reality is it's $20,000 to go to Roland Hall. These vouchers are $8,000. So most people, if you're saying, oh, it's going to help low-income folks go to private school, it's not going to do that. It's basically welfare for the rich is what I like to explain it. But right now, they're realizing that because it's taxpayer dollars, you have to have accountability behind those dollars. Are we giving these students assessments? Are they, held accountable for what they're learning? Are the parents paying for an $8,000 mountain bike so they can also ride on the Corner Canyon mountain bike team? The answer to those are that last one is yes, they are doing that. And so because they're taxpayer dollars, they're now asking private schools to be more accountable and be accredited, which basically means you need to fit these, show us that you are really educating students in the right way to deserve this money. And private schools and the homeschoolers are like, that's not why we do this. We're a private school without taxpayer funding because we get to do whatever we want, or we're homeschooling our kid and that means we get to do whatever we want. But if you're getting state tax dollars given to you to educate your kid with that check, you should be accountable. But it's going to be really interesting because it's kind of a battle of people that were somewhat in support of this originally when the bill was first had a few years ago, to now being like, wait, but we don't want to be accountable for these things. And I'm like, well, then you shouldn't get taxpayer dollars.
Well, the first part of that explanation was not neutral, but the second part was a good explainer of what's happening on Utah's Capitol Hill. Adam, do you have any thoughts here? Because the Utah Fits All scholarship is tied up in court as well. Critics are claiming that you can't take income tax dollars, give it to private schools because income tax dollars are earmarked for public education, and there lies the rub in what the state constitution says about it.
Does the money go to the school or the kid?
The kid.
It goes to the kid to give to the school, or in some instances it could go to the school directly. But
so the money goes to a child, and then they spend that money at a private school, but the private school has to be accountable for the way.
Now, what if they're receiving that money? Then yes.
Okay, so I don't have an opinion. I just wanted to get the answer to that question.
And the private schools are arguing like, we're private, so the government can't tell us what to do. Like
that's why BYU exists.
Exactly.
Right.
Or Westminster. They can do whatever they want. They
Yeah.
can have DEI all day. But, if you take taxpayer money, you can't.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how that one plays out, and if and whether it impacts the legal arguments here. I don't know if there's any sort of implications there, but we'll watch and see it. We're out of time for today, but Adam Gardner and Sarah Reale, thanks for all your opinions today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So appreciate you. Producer Laura filling in for producer Peter. We appreciate your button pushing over there, even though no one saw you today. Make sure you watch Inside Utah Politics this Sunday at 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. We'll recap that gas tax bill. We also have Equality Utah to talk about some of the transgender legislation that's happening on Utah's Capitol Hill. So we'll see you there as well. And thanks for watching. We will see you next time.